The woods don't get you because you're careless. They get you because something in them learned, a long time ago, exactly what your voice sounds like when you're afraid, and it's been practicing. Her name was Rachel Holt, 29 years old, a school teacher from Carbondale, Illinois, the kind of woman who'd spent a decade learning to read a forest the way other people read books, the language of broken branches, of animal silence, of which shadows moved with the wind and which ones didn't. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't naive. She was, by every measure that should have mattered, exactly the kind of person who comes home, which is what makes what happened to her so hard to explain away. It was the first weekend of June, 2021. Rachel and her older brother Connor had made camp near the Garden of the Gods overlook in the Shawnee National Forest, red sandstone formations that rose from the earth like the ruins of something older than history, older than names. Rachel had been here a dozen times. She knew the trails. She knew the sounds. She'd eaten dinner, watched the stars appear one by one through the canopy, and turned in early. Connor fell asleep before she'd even zipped her sleeping bag. Rachel lay awake listening to the forest settle into its nighttime register. The low percussion of frogs near standing water, the occasional bark of a fox, the wind threading itself through the upper branches in long breathing sighs, normal sounds, the sounds of a place simply being itself. She checked her phone, 2:13 a.m. She closed her eyes. Then she heard the child, soft at first, distant, coming from somewhere to the north of camp. A small child crying, 3, maybe 4 years old by the sound of it, sobbing in that broken, exhausted way that children cry when they've been at it for a long time and no one has come. Rachel was upright before she'd fully processed what she was hearing. The instinct was immediate and uncomplicated. There is a lost child in the woods. She shook Connor awake. He listened, groggy, for a long moment. Silence. He said it was probably a fox. Certain owls could do it too, he said. Mimic crying, mimic distress. He'd heard it before. Go back to sleep, Rach. She lay back down. Then it came again, closer this time, and between sobs, threading through the dark like a needle through cloth, she heard a single word spoken in a voice so small it nearly wasn't there at all. Mama. She was out of the tent before Connor could say another word. She moved north, with her flashlight cutting a pale wedge through the dark, following the sound through white oak and shagbark hickory, calling out, "Hello? Is someone there? Are you lost?" In the measured, careful voice she used with frightened children at school. Every time she called out, the crying would stop. A beat of silence, like a held breath. Then it would resume, always roughly 30 or 40 meters ahead, always just beyond the reach of her light. She had walked nearly a quarter-mile from camp when she stopped. Something was wrong with the sound. She stood still and made herself listen, really listen, the way she'd trained herself to listen in the woods, with her whole body, and not just her ears. The crying was still there. Still a child's voice, but the rhythm was wrong. 3 seconds of sobbing, 1 second of silence, 3 seconds of sobbing, 1 second of silence, over and over, with a mechanical precision that no grieving child had ever managed, like a recording on a loop, like a lure. She swept her flashlight slowly across the ground in front of her. No footprints in the soft dirt. No broken stems at knee height, at child height. No sign that anything small and physical had walked through this part of the forest. Whatever was producing that sound existed only as sound. Rachel switched off her flashlight. In the darkness, the sudden total darkness of a forest at 2 a.m., she saw them. 15 meters ahead, at roughly knee height. 2 faint points of pale greenish-white light, perfectly still, perfectly level. Eyes that caught and held the last residual glow of her extinguished flashlight and gave nothing else back. They did not blink. They did not shift. They simply waited. And then, with the crying no longer masking it, she heard the breathing. It wasn't coming from in front of her. It was behind her. Close, close enough that the sound of it seemed to fill the back of her skull. Slow and heavy and utterly calm, the breathing of something that had no reason to rush, no reason to hide, no reason to pretend. The air around her changed in the same moment, thick with the smell of wet fur, and beneath that something older and darker, like meat left too long in warm air. Rachel did not scream. She said afterward that she was simply too afraid to make any sound at all. Some part of her animal brain understood that sound. Any sound was exactly what it wanted. She turned around very slowly. Nothing visible, only darkness and the black columns of trees and the faint movement of leaves far overhead. But the breathing was there, right there, so close she became certain, in the absolute wordless way you become certain of things in the dark, that if she reached forward with her hand, she would touch something solid, something large. She ran, not toward the eyes, sideways, crashing through undergrowth, navigating by memory and the faint paleness of the sky between branches. She could hear movement behind her, but not frantic movement, not pursuit. Something pacing her, patient, deliberate, unhurried, as if keeping a precise distance was the point, as if the running was the point, as if she was exactly where it wanted her to be. She hit the trail and didn't slow down. She ran the quarter-mile back to camp with the sound of that breathing growing slowly, steadily fainter behind her, not because she was outrunning it, she realized later, but because it had chosen to stop. She woke Connor screaming. They broke camp in the dark and hiked out by headlamp without speaking. She didn't tell the full story until they reached the car, and when she did, Connor said nothing for a long moment. Then he said, "Rachel, that second sound, the eyes, that was a different thing from the first one." She knew. She'd already figured that out, somewhere on the run back. The crying had been the distraction, something small and still and patient crouched in the dark ahead, keeping her eyes forward. And behind her, the whole time she'd been following the sound, the whole quarter-mile through dark woods. Something else had been following her. She doesn't know how long it had been back there before she stopped and turned off her light. She doesn't let herself think too hard about that part. The Shawnee National Forest still has no official record of any missing child reported in the Garden of the Gods area that weekend. No animal has ever been definitively identified that can replicate human infant speech with the consistency Rachel described. She has not returned to the forest. She leaves the light on when she sleeps. She says the hardest part isn't what she heard behind her. It's that the crying, the recorded, looping, mechanical crying, stopped the moment she started running, as if whatever was playing it no longer needed it.